Hey guys, Virgin Vinyl with you again today. Today we've got the quintessential prog rock album, and that is Close to the Edge by Yes. Um, whenever I think of like the album that's most emblematic of the genre of progressive rock, this is the number one by a long shot. This is the album that springs to mind. It sort of encapsulates all of the typical tropes that you would associate with progressive rock. It has the bombast, it has the extended long songs. There's only 3 songs on this album, of course, Close to the Edge itself, and You and I, and Siberian Katru. All 3 of them absolute masterpieces. It's a perfect album. It's a crazy album. Like the song Close to the Edge, I've listened to that album. I've listened to this album so many countless times, and that song so many countless times, and nerded out about it, and tried to get people close to me to get it. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I was watching yesterday. There's this guy who has a channel called Doug something, the Daily Doug or whatever, and he reacts to music that he hasn't heard before from the perspective of a classical composer, and so he listened to Close to the Edge, the title track, and his reaction was pretty funny to watch, because he was just like constantly like sort of in shock at what was going on and trying to figure it out, and just sort of it was interesting to watch it like that, because it sort of it's easy to forget how chaotic that song is when you first hear it, especially to try and make sense out of it. I remember the first time I heard it, I didn't really understand what was going on. I would have only been like 14, I think, when I first heard this. And I was like, but I knew, it just instinctively knew that I was gonna like it if I persevered with it. And I mean, there was parts of it that I liked straight away, of course, but like the chaotic opening sequences, and that sort of chaos is sort of spread throughout that first track. But there's also these like crazy groovy parts, and the Chris Squire's insane bass playing. It's not like what he's playing is like technically very difficult, but it's like harmonically weird, and the sound that he gets is really cool, really unique, and he sort of makes the whole thing really hard to pin down, harmonically. And that's what makes it really interesting, just sort of like, it's like, what is going on here? Yet it works. It's not just this free-for-all, mess that you can't get your head around. If you persevere with it, you can get your head around it, and the rewards are incredible. Guys, I just want to say at this point in the video, if you like what I'm doing here, please hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to get this channel off the ground, and so far I'm not getting any subs. That either means that these videos suck, or like people just aren't getting to the end of the videos where I'm asking people to hit the sub. So if you can hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything, and you get to see some dude talk about a new album every single day on vinyl. Anyway, this one that I picked up is of course a new. It's a reissue. Obviously, it's not a real. It's new. I bought it new not that long ago, about 2 months ago, and of course you have the very boring cover hiding the incredible Roger Dean artwork there. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And we got the guys there on the back. John Anderson, Ian Anderson, Chris Squire, Bill Bruford, Rick Wakeman, and Steve Howe, and Eddie what was the guy who, yeah, it's Eddie Offord. Eddie Offord there, I think, is the one producing. And inside, you've got the lyrics there printed on the sleeve of the disc itself. All pretty straightforward. You know, yes, this is really the culmination of, you know, everything that they'd been building up to at that point. You know, from Yes, the first album, Yes. Already you could hear like just hold it like that. Already you could hear, you know, the band were, you know, pulling on the Beatles and the Beach Boys, like vocally, harmonically, and instrumentally. They were already an adventurous band. This is before they had Rick Wakeman and Steve Howe, and then they had Time and a Word, which is you know, you can see the growth there. And those are good albums. Those first two albums, they are good albums. I do enjoy them, but they're not in the same league for me. Once you get to the Yes album, that's when things really start to pick up, with Steve Howe joining the band, and he brings his unique flair, and you know, that Steve Howe guitar sound, and not just the sound, like the way that he writes lines, it's totally unique. Like I can't think of another guitarist who plays anything like him. It's really weird and fucking awesome, and totally Yes. You know, like no other band has guitar playing like that, anything like that. And you know, as I always say, unique is if it's unique and you can make it work and you can make it cook, then that's everything. That's the mark of a great guitarist. Chops. If you have chops on top of that, that's an added bonus, and that's what sort of separates guys like Steve Howe from, like, my favorite guitarists like Alan Holdsworth and John McLaughlin, who have those originality aspects and uniqueness and weirdness at times, but also have the superfly crazy chops at the highest level, you know, and like unmatched musical knowledge. Of course, once the band got to the next album, Fragile, that's when they brought in keyboard wizard Mr. Rick Wakeman. Rick had already sort of had like a pretty his sort of introduction to the business was mostly through session work, and made quite a name for himself that way, and eventually ended up in Yes, and that's when we get the incredible album Fragile, which is also a masterpiece album, and hopefully I can get that on vinyl at some point too. And there you can start to see, like, that's where the classic Yes sound that we all know and love is really, you know, birthed, with, you know, Roundabout and Heart of the Sunrise and songs like that, you know, South Side of Heaven. Those are incredible songs, incredible stuff. That's an incredible album, really, a masterpiece of an album. I think it's let down by some of the interlude tracks. They're maybe not as strong, not as concise. But by the time they got to Close to the Edge, everything just slotted into place perfectly. And the funny thing is that, you know, as we know now, you know, Close to the Edge, the track was basically just like a patchwork of sort of separate parts that were sewn together. And, you know, you would think that would really sound like that. Usually when bands do that, and bands do that all the time, especially in progressive rock and progressive metal, it sounds like that. It sounds like, oh, okay, we wrote this section, and then we wrote this section, and we've sort of stapled it on here, and we've, you know, and the flow, you can sort of feel it, like, oh, maybe that doesn't belong there, or why did they add that? But with this, it feels like it was all meant to be, like, you know, like it's some divine intervention or something like that, you know, that it was like the band just, sure, they wrote all of these separate parts, but you know, it was like, you know, like it manifested itself into absolute perfection, and it was meant to be that way. And You and I is such a beautiful song as well, like sort of more, you know, it gives the album a chance to sort of breathe and have this sort of emotive, epic beauty to it. And then Siberian Khatru just, you know, just takes off and rockets the album home with this killer burning track, which is, you know, absolutely incredible as well. Incredible playing. You know, I think, like, for many years, Yes was my favorite progressive rock band, and this was my favorite album. I think in recent years, I don't know, maybe it's because I've heard this so many times, and you know, I'm sort of exploring some of the other bands that I liked but didn't give as much attention to back in the day, like Gentle Giant and Jethro Tull and stuff like that. I don't know, lately I prefer listening to those bands. But this album, Close to the Edge, will always be close to my heart, and it's an absolute masterpiece, and I'm very happy to have it. Alright guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. And if not, that's okay too. Keep watching. I'll see you tomorrow.